Good morning to the Morning Connection live from the Ligani Club. And we are here yesterday. It was a rainy day, but looks like the heavens have eased up today. Slightly gloomy morning, but that will not stop us from being lively this morning. Good morning to my friend Minette. How are you today?
I am well.
I see you got the memo. We are all in blue this morning. The whole
Yes,
crew.
well.
I see the producer is in blue. The intern is in blue.
Well,
I'm in
blue jeans.
You are in blue. It's such a great day to be alive. I'm so glad I'm alive today. Um, as we get ready for a great show this morning, welcome to those who are joining us live online on
Just let him
YouTube this
continue.
morning.
Just let him continue.
Yes. Therefore, my friend, whatever you want men to do to you, do also to them. For this is the law and the prophets. It's kind of interesting that it says that because I find it so very good. It goes to okay.
We'll just come right back. to greet again?
Good morning. Welcome to you who are listening to the Morning Connection. It is indeed, we'd say, a blue day here on set at the Ligani Club because it seems that my co-host, the beautiful Spinette, got the memo. It says we are wearing blue today, but you know, some of the times that is what happens when you are spiritually connected. Same with our producer, he's in blue, and of course, the our intern is in blue. She has on her blue jeans this morning, but it is not a blue day, meaning that I'm not feeling blue. I'm feeling upbeat today because we are expecting some great things to happen for you today. And yesterday, we had a very, very interesting discussion. I want to not to return, but to move it forward in terms of what we are saying, how we're asking people to live their life. Um, Yesterday, I quoted from the message, which was Romans 12, 1 and 2. It is said another way, but it says, don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. Readily recognize what He wants from you and quickly respond to it. I remember, Mince, when we were doing that discussion yesterday, you said, what is missing? There's so many churches and people are doing different things. And you see what it is? God is not present in what they're doing. They might draw attention to Him, but then they go back to their usual way of doing things. But you rightly pointed to the fact that if we take the pattern from the good book, each time they were doing or planning something, they understood that God needed to be front and center in terms of their planning and in the rightful place. And I think that is something as you go out today, as you are watching online or you're listening to us on the radio, in there in Radio Land, or you're listening to us on YouTube, on social media. Remember, in all of your planning, ensure that you have the Almighty God at the center of it. And remember, what worked yesterday will not work today for you, because God is infinite and He sees everything. And some of the times, what worked yesterday will not work in the new situation that you find yourself. So don't become so well adjusted to the old patterns that you forget that every day that you wake up, as it says in Lamentation, His mercies are new. He's a faithful God, and His mercies are new every morning, which means the inspiration, the grace of God in your life is present with you today.
Yes, sir. Let me add my own good mornings to the greetings. Good morning. This Thursday morning, a little overcast, as Pastor said, but still very fresh. And if you look at the sky, it just looks like a whole new set of clouds have been produced for this morning. So we are always happy to be outdoors, whatever the atmosphere is, we make do with it. It's a very cool and calm morning. I'm feeling it in my own spirit. We are online only for a short while, waiting on the studio to come up. We just got some breeze from a bird.
Yes, he flew by and you felt. And
yeah, I felt the ear from his
flapping of
wings.
his wings, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that's a new one. See, whenever you're outdoors, something exciting can happen. I'm sure the bird is wondering, what's in my path? Didn't I just travel this way? Anyhow, I love where you've started, because the truth is that's where the conversation needs to spend a little time. You know, like when you're kind of watching the hurricane gale force winds gathering and standing off there looking and choosing a path, and thankfully many times it decide not to choose Jamaica. But we're in that place where a lot of Jamaicans are in turmoil about what to do, how to do it, and with what degree of effectiveness. And we hear all the time persons saying, we need to get up and do something, and all the people who are saying leave it to God, and I certainly have come to, I've been guilty of it in the past too, of thinking that those who are saying leave it to God are abdicating their personal
role and
responsibility.
responsibility, yes.
And that when you say leave it to God, you are sitting down and praying with your hands folded
Your eyes and closed.
and your eyes
You're
closed.
not seeing.
You're
what
not
is up.
seeing, you're not in a position of readiness. You're certainly not in the mood for war. And yesterday, one of our callers said many are willing to die for Christ, but who's willing to draw the sword? And we had interesting conversations on what sword are you supposed to draw, because it certainly is not the one to spill the blood that he already spilled his blood, and he'd be looking like, what are you people doing? Are you saying my blood is not enough? We know for sure that his blood is enough. So where you've started looking at behavior, conduct, how you go about living, when we say leave it to God, what do we mean? It means applying the principles of God in the resolution of human affairs. That's what it means. So it means you are taking decisions and you are moving and working and fighting and pushing, but you are doing it in accordance with some very set principles. I think we are about to go online. Did I get the signal? The studio is ready, so we'll be able to go on air. And some of the things that we're saying, we really do want as many persons as are available to listen, to hear it. And I don't want to be saying the same things twice. So, Pastor, let's talk revolution in the meantime.
Do you know what it is to have a revolution? To stand up and fight like soldiers.
Many are called.
Few are chosen. The
All
great
right.
Dennis Brown. You've got
So-
to live.
I raise it because, still feeling the vibe of what we were talking about on air. Lowell and I had 2 visitors yesterday, and the question of change occupied our conversation. And let me put it this way. If these persons are in the 1 percentile of well-to-do, comfortable, big business oriented citizens, and to hear some of the feedback we were getting, is the kind of talk that you would get from that cohort. I want to share some of it with you.
And it continued yesterday through the programs as
You were listening.
I was listening. Even
Bongo
last
Jerry.
I listened Bongo Jerry, but more so with Miguel Lauren. Somebody called and indicated that, time come.
What?
Yeah, so and
What-
I found it.
I just love it that you spent the day listening to Best FM.
When I'm on the road and moving about,
It's your station of choice.
It's where it's stuck.
Yes. I like how you say it's stuck. You tried to move it and it wouldn't.
But good morning to those who are listening to us now on in Radio Land, as we say. Good morning as you move about. We welcome you.
I'm waiting to get the cue that we're on air. So, okay. In which case, Pastor, sing your greeting.
Oh, do you know what it is to have a revolution? To stand up and fight like soldiers. Many are called, few are chosen. You gotta live forever. But somebody said, stick to your day job, because that would never get me any food on my table. But it's a powerful song by the great late Dennis Brown.
But even if you did it for like a month, your weight would come down nicely.
God, I miss it. Oh, my Lord.
You'd be,
Oh, I know you love me very much.
you'd be in perfectly good shape, and you could then resume your normal activities.
So you think that when you sing, you lose weight?
Oh, me?
No, I'm just the general prince when you
No,
sing.
you said it wouldn't put food on your table, so you'd be hungry all the time.
Okay, that's what you're saying. All right.
That's how you would lose weight. and it would be a good exercise.
Oh,
Good morning, good morning, good morning. We started at, I don't know, yeah, it's not so bad. It's not yet 7 o'clock, and we're happy to be with you. Thanks, of course, to the Ligony Club for accommodating us. JD's Urban Pub, where you get the finest in Jamaican cuisine. And now my new favorite. I've not retired the corn pork and the ackee and saltfish, but they do the most delicious pickled mackerel. Not something that I usually like outside of coconut with the coconut rundown. Not the one with the rundown, just basic pickled mackerel, salt mackerel.
I thought you were thinking about a red herring.
No, not herring.
I experienced it. It's very
Salted
good.
mackerel,
It's very
pickled mackerel with onions and it, just rightly balanced, the right amount of pepper. And of course, it's served with ground provisions. Now, I learned the word in Jamaica, we call anything that is not rice.
Ground provision?
No, we call it food.
Oh, yeah. That's
People
true.
say they want it with
Yes,
food,
yes,
which
yes.
was very perplexing to me.
Until you-
Even as a child, I didn't understand how could all these different things be food
Yeah.
when everything is food anyway.
Yeah.
But when I went to study in Barbados and started to move around
You
with
understand
the people from the Eastern Caribbean islands, and I understood they call it ground provisions, which is perfect, a perfect description. They say ground provisions. So you get your pickled mackerel with lots of onion and Scotch bonnet pepper and ground provisions. And if Prasta has his way, you'll get a fried dumpling.
Yes. And last week we had fried dumplings.
Yes,
So I
enough
had 4 dumplings in my
on your plate.
Yes.
Yes, that's enough to last you for a week. So don't expect, no, to last you for a month. Don't expect any for the month of September. We got to say good morning to September.
Yes, it is September. Time to remember.
And it is also the anniversary of my father's birth. Of course, my father died in 2004.
Okay.
So he's been dead for a while, but 1st of September, I always remember him. So I was feeling a little blue this morning, and I was trying to kind of, identify exactly what was testing my spirit. And then, yeah, it is the anniversary of my dad's birthday. I always remember him with, great warmth and love. He was, what you would say now, there's a word they use. He was just a one-of-a-kind individual, old-time Jamaican. All right. So we've said our good mornings and, thank Raphael in the studio for making haste and getting his act together so we could be on air with you. And of course, those who are here at the club holding it together, Pastor Percy for giving us a bruising start.
A bruise.
Yeah, man, you took us right back to the big discussion of yesterday. All of us are challenged with the ideas and the disturbance of the spirit. How do we move towards the change that we so urgently need? And I told you we continued that discussion with 2 very, well-heeled Jamaicans yesterday. People accustomed to big balance sheet and doing big business. And the lady, she owns an employment agency. And she said to me, the problem with Jamaica is that Jamaicans don't want to work. Very, very,
Are you serious?
Yes, she said, because she says she has positions to fill and she advertise, she everything, just not enough hands to do the work. The man, he has a construction company and he's making the same complaint. Cannot find skilled people, and not talking about engineers, just people to come in and do a day's work. If they come for 2 days, they don't show up again.
Yeah, because
And
I tell you what it is.
yeah.
I can explain to you what it is.
Tell me what it is.
It's a mentality of saying, I just need enough resources to...
Get to the next day.
No, that will last me. I remember doing a project. Yeah. and it was to do some cleanup in an inner city. But part of it was that the persons who worked on it would get some amount of certification in unit certification. And the person was doing the implementation said to me, he never understood how what was happening in the inner city. At that point in time, it was about 5-6 years ago, he says, you could get with $200, you could get a lunch, you could get enough money to do a special. I think a special is right.
Not a clue.
Boom and rum, which is
Oh.
when you see you drive through, you see a lot of people early in the morning having a special at the bar split. And he was saying, oh, okay, no, I'm understanding with that $200. That's all they needed for the day.
Yeah, but I reject that.
No, I'm just, it's not a rejection.
No, I'm saying I reject it.
No, but-
and I also reject the Jamaicans who find it so easy to pick that as an explanation
no.
of what is happening with our people. You see,
Hold on, man. Hold on, no. Let me finish his story. And he was saying that with that, he was understanding how hard life was for people. And if people in that instant were so grateful to be able to do something for themselves in terms of that, and he says, then if we were to better educate our person, better provide opportunities for them, he thinks that it would unleash a lot of people we see just sitting on the corner just doing nothing.
yeah, so it's ending on a positive note,
Baby.
but
But he
it
was
is
talking about the grim reality and how it had sunken for a lot of people, and just doing that for them. They were so grateful to be able to be doing something because people had put them in a box and said they don't
Can you
want to do
stop that
anything.
story?
Yes.
It only get more disturbing the,
Why?
the
Because
more you
it's
speak.
reality?
It's not reality, and you know that.
No, but I'm telling you what
It's not reality.
for who?
It is not reality for anybody.
He's a man.
Yes, we are in trouble this morning. You did say revolution.
Yeah.
You know why I'm kind of testy on the point?
Yes.
You know why?
I'm listening. I'm
Oh.
listening.
The first thing is we are people of faith, and I'm not questioning your faith. I'm making just a statement.
Yes.
And so we believe in what is not seen. And we reject the things that are seen and give themselves the appearance of reality. What is said about any of those persons could easily have been said about me. When I passed common entrance in the dark ages of whenever, there was a lady living close to my mom who was very good friends with my dad, and I may have said it before, but my mother and my father are two different generations. My mother could have easily been my father's child. 23 years separate them. So a contemporary of my father is a old somebody compared to my mom. And this lady invited us to her home to congratulate my sister and I had passed common entrance. And we went there. She gave us like 20 cents. I remember it was a coin. And she was telling us, congratulations, you passed common entrance, and let me give you something. And she put coin in our hands. And I could hear her asking her daughter or whomever was nearby, like she would say, you think they know how to spend money? What she saw was two dark-skinned small children in a rural
Was
community.
she dark skin?
She was.
Okay. All right.
She was. I mean, did you know no difference between us except that she see two little children. She had her children who were living in abroad and sending money and going and coming. She herself had traveled. And she felt she was more sophisticated, knew more of the world, she understood things. And she looked at the two of us there, no doubt barefooted, because in the country, if you don't really need to wear shoes, you don't have to, and me still not like shoes. She see two little children that would look like two poor black kids then, in by her reckoning. And she was questioning, we've passed common entrance, we're going to high school, but she still think that when she give us 2 coins, it's open to her to wonder if we can spend money, if we know what to do with money. What I'm saying is that the child she saw then is the woman sitting beside you now. And if I say it myself, highly accomplished, highly intelligent, at that time, no doubt, way more intelligent than any of her children. But because she had a certain perspective and a certain vision of us, she looked at what was standing before her and she concocted her own version of my reality. All of that is to say, when we stand in our place of comfort, whether it's because we're educated or because we are sophisticated or we're well traveled, whatever it is that give us the right or the authority to speak about somebody's mentality and mindset, it's not their reality. I'm not saying I know what their reality is, but I know that every one of us here in this country, every one of us is way more than people say we are. And it hurt my spirit when my own friends sitting in my presence are saying, Jamaicans don't want to work. Why she said that? Because she have job positions to fill and nobody to take it. I don't know why she don't have nobody to take it, but from her perspective, it's because we don't want to work. And it's good job and it's well-paying job and so on. So much so that I said to her, I need a job. The same thing, her husband was echoing what is going on the construction in thing. It's same thing. Prime Minister said we're going to have to bring in skilled laborers because we have all these massive things about to happen and Jamaicans don't have. We need to interrogate closely and with love why our people are turning their back on certain things and rejecting certain things. I will never accept that is because they're either lazy, don't want to work, have them head down in something, only want a special and a box lunch. Never accept it. Because I know that was once said of me.
Unity.
And it was not true.
Unity.
Yes.
I guess we are saying the same thing.
It's time for the 7 o'clock break.
Well, we're saying the same thing. All right.
Best 100 FM is the authentic voice of Jamaica, promoting your prosperity with better vibes and better music. Let us promote your goods and services for you. Advertise with us. For more information, call our office at 876 276 8935. That's 276 8935.
This is your beloved Pastor Percy from the Morning Connection. Support our commitment to Jamaica by joining us on Wednesday mornings at 7:30 when we pray for the nation. Show us you care. Advertise with us. For more information, call our offices at 876 276 8935.
The Morning Connection is not your usual talk show. We aim to stimulate discussion and chart new paths to self-empowerment. So please join us, Minette and Percy, on The Morning Connection, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Best 100 FM. The Morning Connection is not your usual talk show. We aim to stimulate discussion and chart new paths to self-empowerment. So please join us, Minette and Percy, on The Morning Connection, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Best 100 FM. Usual talk show. We aim to stimulate discussion and chart new paths to self-empowerment. So please join us, Minette and Percy, on The Morning Connection, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Best 100 FM. The Morning Connection is not usual talk show. We aim to stimulate and chart new paths to self-empowerment. So please join us, Minette and Percy, on The Morning Connection, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Best 100 FM.
Good morning and welcome back. Good morning, Big Truck. Yes, I am very aggressive. You
She
don't
can
know.
be.
You don't know the half of it. So,
But as we closed on Lynette really expressing how she felt, I wanted to point out a couple of things out of that. What I was just relating, the interaction that I had is, it was a rude awakening for us and the people involved in that project to how grim the circumstances are in our, we call it our inner cities, or thing, in terms of what people needed just to survive. But beyond that, one of the things that it did for us was to say what these people really need are opportunities. And I think that we have missed that in terms of trying to facilitate our people, or men or women, because it was men and women who were involved in that project, to say, okay, all right, you may not have done what you needed to do, and we say your education is what lifts up people. But what it did was to just give them, to my own mind, a vision for the future. But as somebody who works most times with people like that, I say, God with you becomes a majority. And there's greatness in you. And what we need to do as a society is cause our people to see that indeed there is greatness in them, and then have a facilitator environment with that will allow people to, you keep hearing me this word, to flourish, to thrive, to become all of what God has intended them to do. And those persons who say people don't want to work, we have to go dig deeper and say, why is it that people willing to not work for somebody, but willing to take their chance in terms of doing something entrepreneurial? Because I said, when I go to work and I do this for a whole week, this is what I have. It's better I go take the chance. Because in one day, what I get from the hustling is what I'd get for working 5 days. Just my simple thoughts on what has happened. But I think people want to work, people want to live, people want to do things with that dignity. But boy, may I tell you, some of the times we just miss it in terms of what will happen. And I tell you something, have you noticed that with our, we call it our disposal systems, it used to be men who used to be the side men. You notice that? And now the people out there have shifted.
talking about sanitation.
Sanitation. The women, more and more, those trucks are manned by women. And I'm wondering why.
The trucks are manned by women.
Yes.
So now the trucks are women.
Women, man.
No, but I want to make a few comments on what you've said. The question today that we're posing, and I think we're going to continue it beyond today. Do Jamaicans want to work? If you're a student of Marxist, you will remember that work is the enemy of man. Nobody wants to work. Work is hostile, inconvenient, unpleasant.
That's Marxist.
But Marx took it out of sociological studies. We don't want to work. We may need to work, but we don't that desire work and say, oh, I long for a spot of work. No, work interferes with our ability to pursue choices of the heart. And we strive to make a living out of the things that we love to do. So to the essential question, do people want to work? Nobody wants to work. You want to live and prosper and do the things that you love and make a living from it. The way society is organized, paid employment, and we should separate paid employment from even work. Because I work in my garden, in the raw sense, work being whatever industrious activity you engage in to impact your environment, whether you're cooking food, you're transforming ground provisions into a meal on the table, that's work. It's effort, the expenditure of effort.
But let me just throw something.
We should talk about that a little bit, because when I say nobody wants to work, I really mean go out, hire yourself out to do some activity at another man's bidding. Because that's really what we're discussing. Do Jamaicans want to enter into contracts of paid employment with third parties. Many of us, you spoke about the entrepreneurial spirit. Many of us, as you say, hustle and do something for ourselves. Many of us definitely want to do something for ourselves that puts bread on the table.
Yeah, but all right. So I know where Marx came from. Marx says, well, no God in the system. Okay, so we differ. Myself and Marx differ because when I look at story, before in the Genesis account, man was working because in their concept, work is it's worship. Work and worship is what you do, and work, whether it is for paid or whether you say do it, work brings dignity to somebody's life. What do you think?
Well, you've gone, and you have a right to do so. You've gone beyond my reference to Marx was meant to convey, because you have looked at the godless system of Marxist ideology, and I wasn't going there. I just wanted to look at how man's relationship to what we understand to be work. What the world understands as work is not what you and I define as work, because for us, work and worship are the same.
Or shouldn't we go back to original design? Because I think when Mark...
Well, you and I are advocating that.
Yes, right.
We are advocating that as the pathway to changing what we see here.
Yes.
But if you were to look at when you're having a conversation about do Jamaicans want to work, it's not being looked at from original design. It's been looked at through very contemporary eyes. What do we see out there? Lady with an employment agency need 10 women or men to do X, Y, Z. I put out an advertisement. I scour the ground. I get no interest, or the interest I get is, people, like you need a CEO for a science company and the gardener applies. You're the misfit. Karl Marx saw work, the effort by humans to transform the environment for their needs, as a fundamental feature of humankind. And that species of work is what is offensive to man, because it takes away his freedom. He is now held hostage by the system. Now, as you say, godless system, but system nonetheless. And I went there because I was saying to you that sometimes the only freedom a man has is to withhold his labor. That's the only proof that he's not a slave. You can't compel him to work. Sure, if he's hungry enough, he'll do a dating with you and take the money and buy whatever he needs to get by. But what I am intuiting is that Jamaicans at every level understand, or forget every level, because the higher up you go, the more trapped you are. Did you know that? We were talking about it a while ago. When I started to practice law, I was so excited that my law firm gave me a car loan, would help me to buy a house, did every single thing for me. I never knew what it was to stand in a bank line or to stand at the tax office to do a single thing. Lunch was provided at the office. If you work late, there was supper. I thought, wow, every need met. But you know what? How would I leave? If for one reason I wanted to quit, I'd have to figure out how am I going to pay all these loans, how am I going to, whatever. You become entrapped.
Which is what?
That's the honey trap?
No, that's not the honey trap.
All right, sir.
The producer and myself know what the honey trap is, right?
That's not it.
That's not it.
but you see what I mean?
No, but
you think that
it is
that
true.
it
What
is.
you have said, it is very true.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, to just widen that in terms of everything you do, they set up these things and going on, and if I do this, it is fear, the narrative of fear. Fear, that's what it is. So therefore,
Yeah.
it is a narrative of fear which is so widespread. If I do this, boy, my friend, I'm going to say my worthless. you're not gonna have this. You understand where I'm
Yeah,
going with it?
you
And so
can't leave.
that is why this kingdom is about faith.
Yes, and why perfect love casts out all fear.
Yes,
So you don't need to.
Yeah,
You
but
don't
it's
need to
true.
go there. So that is how I look at it. I see Jamaicans instinctively understanding that if I harness my labor to prosper you who don't care about me and who only good to me for the moments
I'm good
that
to
I can give you something and you don't treat me fairly anyway, the most I can do is withhold my labor. And if I am pressed to the limit and I have to take a day's work from you, all right, so you got me. You got me for one day, but me now come back.
Now come back. And
No.
there's no commitment, no love.
And there's no commitment because they understand when they are in an unloving situation. That's why I pray that we are taken out of the hands of cynical and unbelieving people who only do the minimum that is necessary to keep their show going, and you can go suck salt when them done with you. You think we don't know that?
I think a lot of people know that, which is why my concept of how it is, because net, it begins with this. What you do here in terms of accumulation of wealth and things, you leave it when you leave here, because you can't get rid of it.
Yes.
It's not like the former pharaohs who wives and things were buried with them. When you go into the pyramid, you see all of that stuff. They figure, say, oh, they needed it for the after dome. Don't work that way.
Man, teeth it 1,000 years later. We say, wow, such beautiful gold.
And I perform funerals where the gentleman was a done or something.
Yeah, and then
then
put his jewelry on
the
it.
thing is it, and then say, hey, them shit the next day. The
Grave is robbed.
Oh, and so no, these people don't have no sense at all. See, being prepared and they put in them favorite wine and Hennessy and all of them things in the thing with them. I'm saying that. But
All
the
right.
bigger picture really is, and we say it even for the employers, the big companies. You notice a difference in certain companies. People do not want to work with companies because they say the environment in that company is so oppressive. They want the most out of you and giving you the littlest. Whereas other people working in other companies, people find that it's a good place to work and to be. I remember speaking with somebody who was at our church, and I said, "So is this boss?" You know, she said, "He's wonderful. He's wonderful." That's what you mean. She says, "Well, when I worked at this company, I was on contract, and the first thing that he did when he came in, he looked at it from two perspectives: a business decision and from a humanitarian. It says he made everybody who worked in that department on staff."
So they could get some benefits.
Get some benefits because it is how people see their employees. It is just a tool to make me the most money, or is it that they are real people with real needs? I see something unfolding somewhere that I'm associated with, and I say, Lord, give me the wisdom that I can speak into the situation, because it's not just about the bottom line. It has to be about people's lives.
So we come to the crux of it. If in Jamaica we at any level can recognize that the system that we are a part of, the work we give out of our body and soul, because your work is a part of you. Your work carry bits and pieces of your spirit and your intelligence, your joy, your dreams. You know, many people I see look at things and say, you know, I worked on making that building, or they still associate their effort long gone and forgotten, and me know the people who own it don't have a list of all who worked on it. But persons still feel a connection to where their labor was used. And we can tell when our labor is only a matter of convenience.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is the only freedom a man can enjoy and exercise, that he withholds his labor. That's why the right to strike is such an important part of a democratic society in which slavery is abolished. You must be able to say, you know what? Until you respect me, I'm not going any further with you. So whether you strike by migrating and carry your labor go somewhere else, or you just sit down in your country and now do nothing except what you feel like doing when you feel like doing it. We who are planners and advisors and wanting to see a certain degree of order, we have to be sensible about it and sensitive to these things, and not just look at the surface and come to a conclusion based on, you know, how we perceive things. Karl Marx, godless though he was, made a very important point about alienation of man. If man is alienated from his labor, like when slaves were alienated from their children, you're pregnant, you have a baby, and after it is taken away and it is sold. What notion of family life can you ever have?
Which is what they did.
So similarly, you work on something, it is taken to the market someplace, you get a couple coins in your hand for it, and you are separated from it. Then he has a whole thing about the alienation of the worker from his work and what that sense of alienation does to him in other parts of his life and as a member of society. The output of your labor should remain a part of your life somehow. And that's why if you can do something that you love and make a living from it, that is where the key to happiness can be discerned.
Maslow.
Yes. If you can do something that you love. Most of the people who go out and take jobs that are available are doing what's convenient and what is for the time being. And so there's no loyalty, there's no real love, effort, and they are miserable and unhappy people. Right now, I'm doing something I love. And because of that, it don't sitting beside you 4 mornings for the week. And because of that, the fact that it doesn't pay me is secondary. It just means I gotta figure out some other things. But I'm doing something that I love, and therefore it gets my passion and it gets my input. Here's what I think people want, and I see Big Truck says something here too that that vibes with me. He says that we have to work to survive in this Armageddon. But what people want to do is survive with dignity. And if work, even unpleasant work, is a part of it, we'll put up with that for a season.
Because you know what the ultimate.
Because you have But when I look at it and use myself as a measurement, what people really want is to have the man-created, human-imposed barriers and obstacles. We want those removed. That's what we want, you know. Can I tell you, I don't want your opportunity. May we find my own. But you see that stumbling block that you put in my way? Move it. That's what I want. When I listen to you say people need opportunities, yes. In a loving world, we wouldn't even have to discuss that. Because everywhere you look and you want to do something, you'd create an opportunity for another man. He wouldn't have to be pleading with you for it or seeking to justify it. But when I really think about it, what I want is the obstacle that you put in my way, move it. That's what I want. And here's what that boils down to. Teachers know, for example, that they need to be competent, keep themselves current with information, and be professional and proficient at their jobs. They know that. Wouldn't you agree?
That's excellence and efficiency.
Do you think that the introduction of a license makes a difference to a teacher who already knows that and is moving in that way? And so they see the license as an obstacle. And his government have put that in. You understand? When I invested in telecoms, the license which I got and then which the government took was an obstacle. Especially when they take it and don't give you back the money that they took from you for the license.
Up to now, they don't give back.
Up to now, not a dime. Every time I hear that it gone here and it gone there and it's approved, the last thing I heard was something about fiscal space. They took that from 2019.
3 years now. So you'll get back your money with interest.
Well, in God's world, 7 times
Seven.
double for your trouble, 7 times
Are
restitution.
you serious?
I am serious as a judge.
So
That's
what
why
should we
I
do?
get frustrated when I hear these things and how, because somewhere in this country are a set of people who are rapacious in their behavior and their intent.
So they're not decent and
Not decent,
that is
not
why
honest,
judgmental
don't have the interest of the people at heart, and create their own narrative of things in order to get away with dishonest conduct. And those are the same people who you'll find saying, Jamaicans don't want to work, we're going to have to import skilled laborers.
Not Jamaica. But you see, and the people are seeing through it. The lack
Of course, we see it, we
integrity,
know.
and that is why a lot of people have just said, even the teachers.
And Big Truck is just stealing my heart this morning, you know.
So Big Truck,
he says, Minette, I'm willing to give up everything I have today to stand up for a better tomorrow. How much people you think have that mindset? And really, of a fact, that is the mindset that you need.
In terms of people, what are you willing to give?
Put
no
it on the line.
to say. Well, we do that every day in terms of not only here, but in terms of our interactions that we have with people to say, no, man, there must be a better day coming. There must be something better than this.
But you know, like yesterday now, I hear two good-hearted people saying Jamaica will never change. Jamaicans just want tomorrow, if you call an election and you pay them for them vote back in the same person or the thing. And when you
And
hear
they are
that,
the person with power who can do much to change that. And I'm saying, I'm not going to say it on radio. I've told
all right, let's take our 7:30 break. It was
Yes, my friend, with the back on street again, as somebody would say to us.
That mean we come out of jail?
Yes, I know. As we continue to reflect on who will bring about the change, I hear in the voice of one of our callers who says, where's the middle class? Where are the people who have the intellect, the brain to lead the change that needs to happen? But you know what has happened? We have become self-absorbed, because I'm a part of that. Only few people are willing to step out and to say, boy, if I take licks, I'm going to live by the principles that I know to be correct and right. We're talking about revolution. Revolution only begins when people recognize that they are fighting for something that is bigger than themselves. What do you think?
I actually started at an earlier point, because if you just look at revolution as change, radical change, it starts with individuals.
Yeah, man, it always
does. And it becomes transformative when enough persons are of the same mind. One of the things I realize is that you can't really sell a revolution.
No, you can't. It has to be organic.
Yeah. It
has to be organic.
Yeah. So and when it is happening in that natural way, you don't know that what you're doing is bigger than your immediate needs. You don't know usually, and it's why family is such a critical part of any society. It usually begins with, what's going to happen to my children? Because there are some things you might tolerate in your own circumstances, but you're doing it thinking, I'm taking this so my kids can do better, or my family can do better, my tribe can do better. And then you come to a juncture where you see that even if you do this, it not give you no guarantee for the tribe.
But
at which point now you say, all right, enough of that. I gotta make a change somewhere. So like right now, Jamaican families are at risk.
Yes.
And tribe Jamaica is itself at risk when enough families are at risk.
True.
So I see something happening.
I hear it happening.
I feel it in my spirit. It's happening with me. But then I was always on the fringe, and I was always, me tell you, I live on the edge.
At the fringe.
Yeah.
I've lived on the fringe in terms of doing things.
I live on the edge of technology, of ideology. I'm always saying, all right, so it look like this right now, but what could it be tomorrow? And where do we push it? Where does it go to the next level? So I am a next level person. Some people are very comfortable right there in the middle. No want nothing change around them. They want to be in the center where everywhere they look, things look the same. I am standing on the edge looking over there, so where it look different and I see that difference coming. That's what I feel in my spirit for Jamaica. What I want to do is be amongst the persons who channel it so that it's not destructive. That there's something left with which we can build.
You take the words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Because I hear a lot of people talking about rising up and fighting and thing. But I'm saying to them, we have to be so careful with that narrative, because when real change happens, it must be sustainable. It can't be you just burn down everything and that's it because you're angry. If you're angry, I'm suggesting to you, funnel your anger in the right way. Jesus was angry.
Well, remember, that the angry person not going to be the one, because in the absence of rationality, rational decisions cannot be made. It just means we have to take turns being angry. and we have to temper our anger. So for
You
example,
can be angry and rational.
no, then you're not angry.
Oh, really?
You're just vexed. You cannot.
There's a different. Hold on.
You cannot lose control
Okay.
and exercise control.
Let me see. What?
Because we're saying different things, maybe. Because if you've lost control, you have lost control.
No, but did Jesus lose control when says he had zeal for the house of his Lord? What do you think he was angry?
Jesus, the man, can lose control. Jesus, the divine, don't lose control. He controls everything.
Yeah, but
and I want to say something. In his sovereign nature, everything he does is done perfectly and is what it is. There is no out of control or in control. It is what it is.
No, but when I'm asking you, said Jesus the man, because it says be angry and sin not.
Yeah, but you're kind of making the assumption though that when you're angry, you're sinning.
No, but why would he give that injunction then? You can become angry, but it is to use that passion that you are feeling at that point.
Or let me take that back, not anger, because we're talking about loss of control.
Okay.
You're making the assumption that when you lose control, you sin.
Yes, but that's the assumption you made. Huh?
No, I don't make that assumption.
But I'm saying
I say you can't be rational and lose control, because when you lose control, rationality has departed. That's what I'm saying.
That's what you're saying, but I'm
Yes.
saying.
But you switch it and start use new words and say you can be angry.
But you can be angry.
You can be angry
Yeah.
and rational. And I'm saying if you're angry and rational, you're not angry.
Oh, well, I don't know, but that's
Or you're saying, or you're talking about controlled anger, which is not the loss of control anger that we're talking about.
Okay,
Remember,
right.
we're talking about people becoming frustrated to the point that they burn everything down, including the thing that would sustain them.
Okay, right.
If you're gonna burn the thing that would sustain you, you have lost rationality.
You have lost control.
You have
but
lost
I'm saying
control.
You can be so angry about a situation, but yet you are being rational in terms of it because you're channeling in a way. It's like a laser. You're cutting through.
Yes,
Yes.
that is undoubtedly
yes,
so.
yes, that's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
but we're talking about because if you're going to be a part of the cleanup crew, we have to be in agreement.
The cleanup crew.
Or the restoration crew,
like it.
we have to be in agreement.
Change crew.
So,
Change crew.
so a number of things are going to happen. Persons who don't have the tolerance and the mindset to take any more, cup going overflow, and they're gonna lose control. When that happens, typically they burn stuff, they loot, they tear up, they don't care. They are like an unreasoning beast. There's gonna be a group, and that's how they'll behave. And there's no stopping that because, as you say, it comes out of just complete frustration bubbling over naturally. It's like when enough water build up and it bursts the dam, it just go where it finds its own place.
Find its own level.
Right. And anybody who stand up in the middle of that torrent saying, hello, go to the left and to the right, we need you to be in equal,
Does.
gets crushed. So you and I are not planning to stand in the middle of that. Right. We are, like now, we're saying this is going to happen. If you have an interest in building Jamaica, rebuilding, keeping Jamaica in some semblance of productive order, put yourself at a vantage point where you make a connection with the, I'm going to say beast, because we're just being fanciful. You want to make a connection that when the anger cool and they hear your voice, they're already cued to it, and you can be a part of the next move. So right now, we're watchmen on the wall. We're saying, look out, this is coming, this is coming. When it come and it settle down, you then have to go back up on the wall and say, all right, me did tell you to say to come. Now that your temper cool, can we please head over there in this and that way? Do you see what I'm saying? The church is a critical part of that energy. Whatever is noble, whatever is decent, whatever is good, whatever is likely to attach itself to the goodness in man when he settles, needs to be present and in a healthy state of mind to carry forward. That's what I'm saying. And we're not talking about no politics. You still need people to lead your country. Yesterday, my friend reminded me that in Haiti, they now decided every 10 years then kill a prime minister. You cut the grade. You mess with us. You don't give us what we need.
It's a pattern.
Yeah, that's a pattern. I didn't check the dates, but they. If you take the job as a prime minister, please write your will.
Yeah.
If you're a prime minister in Haiti, once you're sworn in, make sure that your affairs are in order, because that day is coming. And one of the reasons I say that day is coming is because when the people still haven't settled spiritually, there's no communication. Like what you say, you can't impose discipline without relationship. So when somebody take a hold of that ship that is, you don't even know what's in the hold, anything can spring up and surprise you. And any faction can decide that you're not cutting it time up, because you don't get a repeat performance. They've made sure after how many years of Baby Duck, of Papa Duck and Baby Duck, they have made sure that after seeing the same DNA in their house of power for so long, they don't make nobody live long enough to have a repeat performance. I speak against that spirit invading Jamaica. It will not happen in Jamaica.
It will not.
But it could, because our leaders have been so flagrantly abusive that it can begin to take root. That, you know what, the only way I can stop this monster from returning is to send him home. We've been practicing it against each other on the streets. For the slightest of infraction, people kill one another.
But somebody told man kill a man for
Knock over a man's pot of soup.
Yeah, and you remember that?
Yes. Yeah, I gave my husband the "it's not personal" speech after that event, because persons are creating their own justice against any last straw individual for all of the heap of abuses, both by the system and by other individuals, that disrespect a man's pot of soup might have been prepared with his last $1,000. You don't know what he did to have that pot of soup ready to be sold, and you knock it over. Honestly, even if you gave him full value for it, he would still be offended.
Okay.
If you stop and say, oh, the pot of soup was, how much did I make? $25,000? Here's 30. He would still be offended.
Yeah, we understand that and know that. So,
And the reason why is the thing that Marx himself was hitting onto. Marx wasn't a communist, you know. Marx's ideology just became critical to communism. When he did his work, he did it as a scientist, a social scientist, looking at a way of interpreting things that were already evident on the ground.
mm-hmm.
And it made such sense that a whole ideology for politics came out of it. But he saw that man's connection to his labor, the UN Convention now recognizes it, man's connection to the output of his labor was umbilical, personal, intimate, and had value. How you feel about the things you do and what you make and what comes out of your imagination has value.
But
And he's saying if you separate a man from it, you've scarred him and hurt him. So we've got to find a way to organize our society such that people don't suffer the trauma of that kind of alienation. And it fits in with your original design, Pastor. I just want to finish this so you can go.
Yeah, that's where
when oh, really?
Yes.
Yes, because when we were placed in this realm.
An environment.
Yeah, all right.
No, but it's true. It just goes back to the original design in terms of what was in God's heart towards us as humankind. It is so amazing.
Even when he cursed us, he said, by the sweat of your brow you shall eat bread.
Yeah. Because original design always know right what the purpose of a thing was.
He designed us that way,
so,
to be intimate with what we do.
Yeah. So
Just like how he desires to be intimate with us.
Yeah.
We are his creation.
Right.
We're the output of his imagination and labor.
Yeah, so
And he desires to maintain intimacy with us.
that is why Jesus came preaching, repent for the kingdom of God is at hand. It was bringing us back to original design in terms of how
Yes.
things were supposed to be. original.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is what the kingdom does for us, is a restoration to the original things. Yeah, so let me
And
turn us back
yeah,
to where.
where it all began.
Yeah.
And that's why I said, I was thinking original design when I said to you, people need to see a removal of the barriers and obstacles which man has imposed, not God.
And I'll
Because
get to that,
when he put us here, he put our hand on the soil. In fact, he said he pulled us out of the soil
yeah.
so that we could always have that connection. So he meant for us to have a direct relationship with what we are doing.
Yeah.
And then man come and say, all right, if you're gonna till this piece of land, it needs to be zoned for agriculture, and you need a permit, and you've got to come to me here. Control.
Yeah.
And then when you show up to say, okay, I want to till this soil, and can I have my permit? Him start to ask you for a whole set of things which are of his imagination, not God's design.
Yeah.
That's what I mean when I said that's what we want. We want to go back to the best opportunity that we can have for ourselves to do what we need to do with minimum interference. I'm not saying that there should be no control, because once we settled and began to live in spaces like these, there is an obvious need for us to set systems in place so we can live harmoniously.
That is why he gave them the 10 commandments.
Right.
He said to them, all right, so
now law has entered.
I'm at the center of it, at the top, and then the others is how you relate to each other. when you read it, first then God and man, and then the next 6
Man and man.
Yeah.
And when we say put God in your arrangements, all we're saying, we're not saying sit at a board table and all of you pray and wait so God can drop something in the middle of the table and you know what to do. No, we're saying in your daily relationship, use the principles of the kingdom of God to inform your decision making and your movements. So for example, I know there's honor and respect and love that must be evident in how I speak to Pastor Percival, how I speak to producer and anyone, any guest of the program. We know that there are some principles that we honor. As we speak, we don't sit down and wait for God to tell us how to behave. He has already shown us many patterns, many rules that are already given to us to guide us. And then when we look like we're not taking it, he sent his son and said, go down there and just walk among them for me. Let them observe you. Let them see. Put a couple of them in discipleship with you and leave them so they can train others. Pattern.
So here's a simple rule of thumb for behavior. Ask yourself what you want people to do for you, then grab the initiative and do it for them. Adopt God's law and prophets. This is what you get.
Yes, but please have a heart of love for yourself.
Yeah.
Because
that's where it begins.
Sometimes the things that we want people to do for us, we are so unkind to our own selves, unforgiving and unloving, that you apply that standard and you get disaster. So you gotta make sure
so
that
you have to have a right,
you have a heart of love,
right sense of who you are in terms of what God has said, and it does everything for you. In terms of the news, that's happening as we.
And we have news to Pastor Percival.
Yes, we have great news.
For example, we were so looking forward to Winsome being on the program with us, but I understand that some challenges on her side. She won't be joining us in the usual slot. And
but
then
she's gonna come?
No, I think the challenges arose this morning, so she wouldn't have been able to organize. Yeah. But I know you do have. We haven't talked about who we're going to be speaking with this morning. We're looking forward to
speaking to Nadine Malloy. Miss Nadine Malloy, former principal of Arden High School, and also.
Did you say former?
I said former, then I corrected
okay.
Principal of Arden High School and former president of the Jamaica Teachers Association. I'm trying to remember when she was. She could correct us about that. So she's going to be talking about back to school, and she's going to be talking about giving her side on why teachers are migrating and leaving the classroom, because she's been a teacher for a very long time. Wow. She was before being principal of Arden. She was principal, I think, of Buffalo, which was one of those things. So she knows a traditional and a non-traditional. So she understands what the issues are. In the Observer today, disabled feel dissed.
Who feel this?
It's in the Observer.
Oh.
More than 6 months after the Disabilities Act took effect on February 14th, disabled Jamaicans are concerned that there have been no tangible action by the Jamaica Council for People and the government in terms of education. So they're accusing their disabilities,
the council,
of failing the community. Wow.
You're close to the council. What's your assessment?
It's true.
There's more they could have done.
There's so much more you can do in terms of education and beginning to tell the powers that be, business owners, the things. The average Jamaican, including many business owners, teachers, professionals, and the general public, does not know about that. That is true. You hear anything? Yeah, you don't hear anything.
Yeah.
Even though they're saying they're gonna 2 years.
And you're saying that's one of the roles, functions of the Disabilities Commission?
Council, which is a government entity. It's funded by the government. So
okay. Because I was gonna inquire about funding.
Yeah, so. Yeah.
Well, my dear, the appearance of virtue without the substance of it. So we look good when you look at the legislation we've passed. We look good because we addressed it, but then those who should benefit from it are left suffering. So it is true, there is a headline about the Crime Monitoring Oversight Committee.
A running target? You mean they're running away from the target?
No, or the target is running away from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember Clayton said that when he came, and I remember he said why they can't agree on some targets. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh.
And when Professor came and he spoke about it.
Did he come or did he speak with us on the phone?
To us on that. Right? When I come, I mean he was on our program.
Oh, okay. But the issue now,
yes,
the Crime Monitoring Oversight Committee is pushing for the government to provide a timeline on when, listen to what they want now, on when the draft for the Enhanced Security Measures Act will be completed or being tabled. Okay. So they're not asking for anything in relation to crime. They're asking for a timeline in relation to a document. That's why the Prime Minister ignoring them. That's why the Prime Minister, Mr. Chang, ignoring the committee. If that is your focus, can I please have the document? This is a draft piece of legislation. Then I think you're missing the point also. Because really of a fact, if you are laying store, if your hope for change and improvement is in a new piece of legislation, we don't need to. You just spoke about the Disabilities Act, which passed how much years ago? What, 14?
Yeah.
If I remember.
It was passed, yeah, true. And
yeah.
then it took
and
a
then
long time for
before any regulations.
Yeah.
So this committee is waiting on the draft of a piece of legislation. This is an irrelevant committee. But then they go on to talk about some targets. One of the deliverables identified in the 2020 consensus on crime among government, opposition, and stakeholder groups was that the act would have been drafted by the first quarter of 2021. Talk about missing the forest for the trees. The country are burned down and some set of people are waiting to get a document. Does that make sense to you, Pastor? It don't make no sense to me. That's why they are irrelevant. And look at who's involved in all this back and forth. The government, so these politicians, opposition, politicians, stakeholder groups.
Where are those stakeholder groups?
Private sector. This is just another piece of this is another weapon being fashioned in the armory to fight against the same people who them say no one work.
Is that why I never saw the interview in terms of the statement that the Prime Minister made when he was in Trinidad about stronger measures coming. You remember that?
Yeah,
I
it
was
must be this.
searching for
Yeah,
it.
they have something called Enhanced Security Measures Act. That is a threat to people's freedom, you know. Anything that name enhanced security. Do you remember what they called enhanced interrogation techniques?
Yeah.
Made the news when they were waterboarding prisoners in Guantanamo Bay.
So you need what the intelligence.
From you see the word enhanced.
That's a good thing.
Enhanced Security Measures Act. That means whatever they're doing, they want to do more intensely, for longer periods of time,
And the
against
permission of
more
the law to do
people.
it.
And rest assured that the target of these types of measures will not be those who are sitting in high places.
Right, you know.
So I read it, I thought, well, there's no wonder that this Crime Monitoring Oversight Committee is so irrelevant, so ignored, is of no consequence to Mr. Chang. Even Mr. Chang knows that it's of no consequence. And I don't think any kind of agreement between private sector, opposition, and government leaders will have an effect on the ground. It's just going to become more punitive in terms of enhanced police measures, enhanced breaches of fundamental rights, and people are just going to get more and more frustrated.
Irate
Yes.
and irritable.
Yeah.
On a lighter note, can you
Yes.
imagine your
There's a
friend?
lighter note.
I don't-
Oh,
On a lighter note.
the producer has saved you from that one.
Oh, can you
We'll
imagine?
take our 8 o'clock break. When we come back now, we'll go into our conversations with the guests, and I might continue to hope that we'll take a few calls. So that's a really nice observation because
Who is that? Who is that?
just servant.
Yes, sir. Huh?
Yeah. He says we don't burn the house down because of frustration and ignorance, but we improve and we renovate the house just as we would update and upgrade ourselves with our ancestors' knowledge. And I love to talk about restored knowledge
Yes.
because though knowledge can be lost in the midst of time, and we see how that happens even in the way we are not teaching our children the things we should teach them, and they are showing that gap in their knowledge. A man who don't know something think it don't exist.
True.
And as somebody was there struggling, it was righteousness. Like yesterday was saying, you don't know what you don't. Somebody was saying you don't know what you don't know until you learn what you don't know. And there was some don't know argument. I think it was the branch.
Yes,
When
yes,
I
it was a branch. It was.
I was pressing him to be more efficient in the delivery of his comments. And he kept chiding me and saying, I don't know what he's going to say.
Yeah, I
And
remember. It was
basically wanted me to keep quiet until he said it.
Make him point.
Yeah, and the only problem, was that I didn't have time to allow him to do it exactly as he desired to do it. Forgive me, Branch. I'm sure you've already done so. But the point that he's making here, our listener, that in the same way that we have to bring back the knowledge and make the knowledge current to, present day circumstances, so it is with our society and the institutions that we have and so on. He's saying that we need to renovate, upgrade. Of course, some things are so rotten, you really have to burn it down. What say you?
I was going to ask. It says renovate and what if the foundation is wrong?
Gotta burn it down. The truth is, it'll crumble.
No, but it's not burning it down. You have to dig up the foundation and start from there.
It's gonna crumble, and sometimes you have to change location. What used to be the palace become the cemetery.
Yeah. That's some very graphic pictures.
Yes, Kawan, I'm radical in how I speak on these things because we have a habit sometimes you see some things lingering. You can't, sacred cows, you can't touch it because. But these are the very things that afflict us. And you have to be able to recognize something that needs to be dismantled and, as Pastor say, uprooted, dig it up. And sometimes you just have to change location.
So you're acting in your prophetic mantle. Remember that was the call of Jeremiah?
Yes.
He was called and he said, behold, I give those say that you're a young person or you're an old person. Behold, I've given you the power to. Remember that?
I do remember it.
And the prophetic role in terms of what he had to do and to call something.
But yesterday when we were having the conversation about the changes that are underway and will fully manifest in Jamaica, my friend kept saying, tell me what you see, why you say it so boldly. And that kind of caught me off guard because we were having what seemed like a social, exchange. But came a point when she said, and she's one to watch in terms of her insight. And she said, but tell me, what is it that you two see? What do you see? Why you speak so boldly? She didn't say boldly, but, she was saying, why are you so emphatic? Why are you so sure?
She asked you that.
She asked me,
okay, why you believe? Because of what you were seeing from a spiritual.
They weren't seeing it because all they were saying is, no, Jamaicans don't want to work. Jamaicans, you can just buy them off for the next election. They don't care. They're not involved. They're not interested. And the, all of that was going on.
Yeah, I asked that question.
Yeah.
Because a great way to solve any problem is to acknowledge what the problem is and then to project and to speak into the situation. This is the problem, but this is the new reality. What do you say to that?
Well, it is why I grew so heated in my conversation with you earlier that I said, stop. Don't tell any more of that story. Because
Because
You
I was
can
saying what the
never
reality is.
accept.
I don't accept that reality, no. But I was
You
saying,
can never accept that reality over what you and I, as persons of faith, know to be the truth.
right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
we're
even-
together on it.
So even my discourse with people and people
Yeah.
coming for counseling, this is what they are seeing as their present reality. And I'm saying, no, this is not so. Can we have a conversation about where you see yourself and where you want to go? Because if you stay mired and rooted in what the present reality, it's only depressing.
And there's only one place that's going.
It's not going any better. So part of the thing is, in terms of, we call it person-centered therapy. Okay, then this is what it is. But then where do you want to go? What are your goals for saying, coming and sitting in front of me and taking time when you could be doing other things to say, okay, where is it that you see yourself? Because I have a thing that I use in terms of what I do is to facilitating persons to greatness. I want to help you to it's not unravel, to see, unearth the greatness that is within you, because you have been created in the image and likeness, and move towards that in terms of your daily living. I was jokingly saying to you, see, I've appointed you this day over the nations and over the kingdoms, to uproot and break down, to destroy and to overthrow, to build
You were
and to
joking.
plot. You know, I jokingly saying it to you, but the reality, this is what it says in Jeremiah 1 verse 10. See, I have appointed you this day over the nations, over the kingdoms, to uproot and to break down, to destroy and to overthrow, to build and to plant. We could break down what
I receive
those things really mean. But in terms of what we say, that is why we keep saying what you say is important, because it becomes your reality.
So you took me to I had a meeting last night, and I had asked the meeting to meditate on a particular scripture, which I'm going to share with you because you just pulled it out of me right there as you were speaking. In Paul's letter to the Ephesian church, he prayed for them. This is in chapter 3 of Ephesians.
Yeah, man, that's a powerful
And at
chapter.
verse 20, as he was closing the prayer, he placed before them a description of God and how God would work through them. So at the end of the prayer, verse 20, he says, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. To him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen. We were looking at verse 20. This capability, him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, but all of this is according to the power that is at work within us. Going through it, I certainly was struck by the fact that any limitation
You place
that
on yourself.
I is me place it on myself.
That's why you come out of Egypt. Because Egypt is a place of
limitation.
And that is why I have the spirit in
So
our life.
even as you were saying to your clients, the people you were counseling, you were saying to them, no, the reality that you see, how you see yourself right now, if you get stuck there, that is the limitation you have placed on yourself. Envision a you in the future that is doing something way different, that is capable of way more than what you're seeing now. Create that image. Let that be your prayer.
Your vision.
And let the one who can do more than you can ask or imagine, let his power accomplish it through you. And looking at it, I said, all right, now this is where you want individuals to understand that there is power in them which can give them more than they ask or imagine. Let me just cut it down to that.
Can I read it from a different version to you?
Sure.
It says, now to him who's able to carry out his purpose and to do super abundantly more than all that we dare ask or think, infinitely beyond our greatest prayers, hopes, or dreams, according to his power that is at work within us. To him be the glory in the church and in Jesus Christ throughout all generations, forever and ever. What catch it that we dare to ask or think. Remember Einstein spoke about imagination? Spoke about imagination.
Yes, exceeding knowledge, more important than knowledge.
Knowledge that you have, because he says, if you only cater to what you know, then you can't go into the future, because it is all about your imaginations and what you can think. So we are saying in the power of Christ, all of this becomes possible.
So I'm gonna borrow from Marcus Garvey, because I know when Pastor and I talk about Paul, there must be one or two persons who are saying, can we have somebody a little more contemporary?
Yeah, man.
Someone more relatable, not a Jewish man out of the Bible, but how about a black man out of Jamaica and what he had to say? I was drawn to the fact that Marcus Garvey says the Bible in one hand and your UNIA mandate manifesto principles in the other hand. This is how we fight. We fight with the knowledge that there is some divine appointment and enablement and some scriptural foundation for the things that we are asserting. So I just went into my recently purchased current day version of the Philosophy of Opinions of Marcus Garvey, and I just want to share a tiny piece with you. Christianity, a moving force. This is from page 79 of the book. But there is one lesson we can learn from the teachings of Christ. Even though man in the ages may be hard in heart and hard in soul, that which is righteous, that which is spiritually just, even though the physical man dies, the righteous cause is bound to live. Because the preaching of Jesus, the teaching of Jesus, was not something physical. If it was something physical, it would have died. That's the words of Paul there. The teaching of Jesus, the preaching of Jesus was something spiritual. And where there is righteousness of spirit, there is length of life, real immortality. Jesus the man was not respected. Jesus the man was not adored. Jesus the man was not even loved by his own people. And for that they crucified him. But the spiritual doctrines of Jesus were righteous. The doctrines of Jesus were just. And even though he died nearly 1900 years ago, what has happened? After the lapse of 1900 years, his religion is the greatest moving force in the world today, morally and spiritually. It shows you, therefore, the power of spiritual force. It shows you, therefore, the power of a righteous cause. Jesus, who was the first great reformer, taught us the way. After him followed other great reformers who shared the same fate, born perhaps in the same lowly station of life, feeling with the masses of people who suffered like them. They have gone out, whether it be Luther or St. Augustine or some other great reformer, but they have all gone out and they preached their doctrine to suffer in their time for the doctrine, to rise again on the wings of time and to flourish as the green bay tree. You like that? There's Marcus Garvey understanding and writing, including it in his thoughts, that the divine, what we called it?
Divine.
The mandate
Of the divine.
of the divine is not irrelevant to the suffering and the fight for freedom in today's world. And I think, I mean, that is just one of the laws of nature. That's how I see it. So we're not being unscriptural when we say these things. And in fact, if we were to focus only on what we see in the natural, we can still find our foundation in the spiritual.
True.
So this is not Pastor and Minette who are, modern day Christians beating the Bible and trying to drive something home. We are speaking truth, and we're speaking an eternal truth, that even those who don't want to address Jesus and God at the center of the decision making, if you want to start with Marcus Garvey, sure, start with him, because when you start with him, he points it back to the source that we recognize.
And even as we look at what's happening, Yesterday we never mentioned it.
Oh.
African, the UN had designated yesterday as the day, the UN.
Yeah, to recognize people of African descent. But you know what? I just wasn't impressed by it, even though what the man was saying. You want me to find what he was saying?
I just make note, and then also yesterday, Gorbachev passed away at 91.
Yeah, but you can't just make note of it like that, Pastor Percy. Don't you want to point to the significance or insignificance of it?
No, but African, I found that just to make mention of it, but even more significant to me is
the opinion expressed about Gorbachev?
Yes, in that here's Putin presently invading Ukraine, because Ukraine used to be a part of USSR. But Gorbachev was the person who helped to dismantle the USSR. So he's passed, and he must have been never turned him. He was dead yet, but he was. I read some opinion and say it was very. What is the word? Disillusion with what had presently happened with the
breakup of the USSR.
Yeah.
And so you think he would be pleased that Putin is moving heaven and earth to bring it back together. All right. You mentioned International Day for people of African descent. And Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, did a letter. It was letter of the day to the Gleaner made it letter of the day. It is on some nondescript page in yesterday's edition, so not even the Gleaner believe that it was worthy of anything more than
the editorial page.
Yeah, but I mean, still, International Day for People of African Descent is not on the front page.
Okay, all right. I thought the where the editors thing would have been important. But
yeah,
in your mind, it's not. So.
No, what I'm saying is,
should I put it on front page?
If it is a day of significance in anybody's reckoning in their architecture, it would have made yes, yeah.
So the letter of the day should have made front page. Yeah. Okay.
Or the subject matter of the letter of the day, because you're pointing out that the letter goes on that page.
But you're saying if it was
the subject matter is what I'm concerned about.
Right.
So he writes that each year on August 31st, the International Day for People of African Descent celebrates the diverse heritage and culture of people of African descent and their enormous contribution to our societies throughout history. And then he gets into the meat of the matter. He says, yet, around the world, millions of people of African descent are still subject to racism and deeply entrenched and systemic racial discrimination, including in countries where people of African descent are dominant in numbers, like Jamaica. That is why the United Nations continues to call for the full respect of their human rights and fundamental freedoms, for redress when these are violated, and for formal apologies and reparations for the egregious wrongs of slavery and colonialism. So that's the UN's position. We should get reparations. We should get redress when our rights are violated. We are entitled to full respect for our rights and fundamental freedoms. And that's it, a statement. But the UN acknowledges that all around the world, we continue to suffer racism and systemic discrimination and violation of our rights.
Okay.
So we're just acknowledging. It's one of those things that I'm like, what's really happening here?
Do you think the UN should lead with having a day for that? They should be at front center in terms of the call for reparations.
There should be, but not. I mean, having a day. There's a thing we do which is like a PR. This is again the Machiavellian principle of the appearance of virtue being greater than virtue itself. You have a day when you recognize something, and what does that do? Did you feel any way special? Did anybody give you?
The thing with days, it's just a day and you have to go on to the next day.
Yeah.
So let us have something that sustained, that really, yeah, keeps
Well,
that going.
he mentions here, though, that the United Nations General Assembly has requested the Intergovernmental Working Group on the effective implementation of the Durban Declaration and Program of Action to draft a United Nations Declaration on the promotion and full respect of the human rights of people of African descent. The forum will contribute to this critically important work. It is essential that we continue to speak up loudly and without fail against any notion of racial superiority, and that we work tirelessly to free all societies from the blight of racism. That's the letter. I feel sorry for poor Mr. Guterres. Honestly, you have a job at the highest level, it's on a world stage, in an organization where its members thumb their nose at the very declarations and conventions that they participate in creating.
Okay.
They apply it when they feel like it. They recognize that you can make these statements on the world stage, and in your country you just dishonor them and do whatever you feel like. This is of the powerful countries whose money run the United Nations. What a job. It's just a big PR job.
Oh my Lord.
Don't you think?
Well,
When you choose, listen, and that, you know what?
Look,
That's the way of the world, unless everybody live off of the same code.
yeah, that's
It's the way
true.
of the world.
Yeah.
Because you have the might, will exercise it for his benefit, and so it will go. We're going to shift because it's time for us to look at the issues touching and concerning our teachers in education. And we're going to take our break and return. Yeah, we're going to take our break and return with Miss Nadine Malloy and see if we can get some deeper insight into the experience of our teachers, and not just teachers, because they're human beings, and whatever you see them doing, rest assured that when the police do it, when the nurses do it, it's the same blood running in their vein. So please stay with us. We're going to be right back. Welcome back. All right, we're raising Miss Nadine Malloy on the phone. And while we are waiting on the connection to be made, we'll just recap some of what's been front of the brain concerning the migration issue. It's not the fact of migration, really, because we understand that Jamaicans are by nature enterprising and we love to travel and we do very well when we travel. So there is so one, we don't mind traveling, and two, there's a lot of appeal for us in the wider world.
Okay.
So we're welcomed in other societies. People look forward to having a Jamaican
I love Jamaicans
on board. Yes. Good morning. Hi, Miss Malloy.
Hi, good morning, good morning.
It's always such a pleasure to hear your voice.
Well, thank you, and thank you for inviting me on.
Good morning, my favorite principal. How are you?
Hello, Mr. Principal Palmer. You don't tell him that we are out of school mates.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Really? Which school? You went to Calabar?
Absolutely not. I went to Marymount High School for girls. Run by the Franciscan Sisters of Allegheny.
And you know, I think that probably explains why your voice is so pleasing to me.
Oh,
Us all girls school graduates have a way of speaking that has managed to flourish without the interference of boys at a certain age testing our patience.
it's an interesting dynamic, and I think somebody should write some study, whether it is anecdotal or whatever. Somebody should do some kind of study on it, because it's true. We have a tendency to sound similar.
I think it's the absence of men to test our patience at that age, critical age,
Yes.
so we can speak with dignity and poise.
Well, you remember those sisters telling you, "Oh no, this is how you have to do it."
Absolutely.
And they would fine us.
Ladies don't raise their voices.
Absolutely not.
I do walk down.
Percy's wondering, where will this end? So it does make sense. It does make sense. Well, we greet you well on the Morning Connection. Matters pertaining to education and the welfare of our teachers. Oh boy, near to our heart and top of the list. And as you can see, all of Jamaica is feeling the pain right now. And not the politics of it. We won't touch that because it's not a political issue.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't even think it's something that the minister can solve, because it's not a political issue. So we were Pastor Percival, he said it on radio, you are his favorite principal. He says, we've invited you on two bases. First, that you are a principal today, and so you're living the reality of it. And also, you once served as president of the JTA. So you have some insights that you might be able to share more freely than when we do speak with the current president, who is new in the job and no doubt has to be very sensitive to the places where she has to speak, because she will be speaking both to government and to her own constituents. So I dare say diplomacy is going to be more pressing on her than I hope it is on you, though I'm sure you're always diplomatic.
Well, I can understand that, but I listened to the president this morning on television, Jamaica.
Yes.
And she was absolutely awesome. She was on point. And I'm very, very happy that I endorsed her and supported her. I don't know in these times how diplomatic you need to be. And when I listened to her this morning articulating the issues, Mrs. Harrison, president of the JTA, when I listened to her articulating the issues this morning and speaking to things without even saying so, things like, what is it that we value? What is our philosophy of education? How can we all come together and be at the same table, regardless of where we're coming from, whether we are at the JTA, whether it is at the Ministry of Education. She was challenged at the end to make a direct statement to the minister, and she did. And what I heard coming from her is, what is our philosophy? What do we value? How do we collaborate, and how do we make people's lives? And in this instance, those of us in the education sector have value, and let people understand that they are valued, so that we can have them at the table even when our conditions are not at their best.
Wow.
So, I mean, that is both diplomacy, that is just righteousness being expressed, and that's showing a great deal of heart. The way you are able to repeat it, it tells me that you've had the same sentiments.
Absolutely, absolutely. We sit at the JTA and we discuss a lot of issues. We come together. I chaired the policy committee last year. I'm chairing the board of trustees this year. We sit down and we examine every policy that comes out of the Ministry of Education. Some naturally in more detail. We were paying a lot of attention to the Jamaica Teaching Council bill and so on. We look at all of these things that are happening in education. And we have a voice, and we do articulate that voice very clearly what we think that the direction should be. Unfortunately, though, the media does not carry us speaking about those things as much as they carry us talking about the salary
About
issues.
term conditions of labor and
Not even conditions,
salary.
Salary part. Because when we talk about the learning condition of the student being the working condition of the teacher and vice versa, nobody picks up on that and says,
Yes.
you know.
But
the
can I
teacher
tell you, Madam former President,
Yes.
the parents and general society pick that up. We know it is so. So I have to ask you, where do you see the disconnect? Because the teachers seem to be fully cognizant of the relevant issues. Where is the disconnect?
The disconnect is the will in this country for us to come together and do what we know to be right for education. Resource education properly. Find it somewhere, somehow, to do more for our teachers in terms of remuneration. And we can take that off the table now.
Yes.
Resource our schools properly. Say to parents, it has to be a partnership between you and the school. Every year you come with what I consider these misguided utterances that, oh, school is free, you do not need to pay, nobody can lock you out. Show me the principal who was telling anyone that they can't come to school if you don't pay the $18 or $80 a day that you're being asked, that the ministry is paying us for students.
Okay. All right. So, Miss Malloy, so what I hear you speaking to is the will to get it done. The Patterson report says that there's enough money in education. There don't need to be any greater spending. What do you say to that?
I don't agree.
Okay.
I don't agree. I have worked in 3 high schools in Jamaica. I started out at Bishop Gibson High School for girls. I was there for 6 years. As you know, I attended a traditional high school.
Right.
I spent 12 of my almost 30 years in education at Buffalo High School.
Right.
I am now into my 10th year at Arden High School. So I've seen quite a bit of what the landscape in education looks like. I've gone back to my primary school, Burnhamwood Primary. It used to be all age when I was there, up in the Blue Mountains in Portland. As JTA president, I had the privilege to visit many schools, and my daughter is an early childhood special education teacher who is working in the special education sector now. We have a significant deficit when it comes to resourcing our schools. The schools don't have access to many of the teaching aids and materials that other schools have. What we have, first of all, here at Arden, that is not at our upgraded high schools, which is a name that I hate. Let's take our primary schools.
It's worse. Somebody say it worse.
But on the issue, on the issue of budgeting and resources, and given where you have served, were you privy to the total sums in the education sector and how they are apportioned? Because in fairness to Mr. Patterson, he said when you look at the amount of money that is spent in the sector as an overall spend, enough money, more than enough money, he says, is there, but the apportionment of it is based on misplaced priorities.
There is that too. But when you look at the bottom half of our school, those are performing below satisfactory. It begs the question, how can you say that the resources that are there, it's adequate when they don't have what they need to provide a good educational foundation for our children? How can you say that? We are going to be looking at how much we pay our teachers. Yes, that's a part of the total spend. But let's break it down. Let's look at it in more detail. Let's compare what we are spending in education in Jamaica to what is happening in other Caribbean countries, to what is happening in other countries that are able to do more.
In fact, he did so. The Patterson report to which Percy referred made that analysis and came with the conclusion that we are spending more, proportionately, of course, than comparable islands, but the priorities were misplaced. So my question to you...
In addition to that, and I am on the ESOC committee, so I have to be careful how I
yes.
here. So the question is, where are you coming from? What is your starting point? And the reality is the starting point in Jamaica is low. When I arrived at Buffet High School in 2020, and I don't like to talk a lot about Buffet High School because there's a current principal,
yes.
and I have to respect her.
Yes.
She was a part of the team that worked with me when we started innovating and transforming the school. I was in shock. I had absolutely no idea that there were schools in Jamaica that operated the way the school operated, that was so lacking in resources. When you look at how much parents put into the traditional high schools versus what parents will put into the non-traditional high school. I remember a situation where I had a parent who had a child, one in a Kingston school, one in another school in St. Mary, and one at Buffet High. And the parent was telling me, I am not going to be doing what I am doing for the others for this one, because those will come to something. This one
is unprofitable. May I shift you?
Again, it comes back to our starting point.
Yeah, but may I shift your focus a little bit, because those inequities are very familiar to all of us and our listeners. But I do want to find out from you on the policy setting side, and even when a budget call is made, are principals included in the process by which you set budgets and determine the amounts that are needed for the schools? I mean, is there a place in how things are done?
Yes, we do our budgeting here locally. We start with our HODs, our supervisors, our BURSA, our finance committee, our board, and we sign off on that. But it is really a pool that we have, and it's how you shift that pool around each year that will make the difference. So, for example, there was one year, Mr. Palmer, you remember, I did less in terms of maintenance,
yes,
and more in terms of technology development here at Arden.
That's correct.
There was we have been looking at, let's say, for example, we have very old buildings, and we are looking at some of the additional maintenance that we need to do. So we're moving away a little bit from the hardware procurement for technology and moving more into the software and looking more at how we make sure that our sewage system is, on par. The school is 95 years old. These buildings, some of them are 80 years old and more. So it's that kind of a
environment.
But we have also put a very big portion in for professional development. We have what we call a professional learning community committee that drives ensuring that our teachers are constantly upgraded and constantly ready to meet the needs of our students.
My next question is, when you make your budget request, what percentage of it would you normally get?
We get all that the ministry says they're going to give us.
I like how you said that.
Yes, we get all that the ministry says they're going to give us.
Which means you would put in a request for, just to keep it simple, you would put in a request for $1 million and you get...
It's standard. You get $17,000 per student who is not on pass, $19,000 per student who is on pass.
So,
And people at the ministry do not kill me for not remembering what the technology.
so what's the point of the budget exercise? Why do you do?
Because you have to account for how you spend the money.
You have to account. You really have to account. But
That's audit. That's not budget. Why
Well,
be involved
no,
in
you
an
have to make up a
exercise
budget because
where?
you have to show how you're going to spend the money. You have to make up a budget because you have to show how you're going to spend the money. No, we have our parents who give us tremendous support here at Arden, and that happens in every school. And so that forms your other income, and there are other things that you will do from that.
So now,
Of course, you may earn some from, like, say, we have our necessities here where we earn a small sum from books that we sell,
Well,
like the lady said, necessities.
Miss Malloy, I am only curious about the futility of developing a plan and a budget against a vision for your school, which is near incapable of being achieved because you get whatever it is that ministry has predetermined.
But we have miracle workers.
yeah.
Oh well, I'll leave you to pass the person out there.
Here's the reality. You know what you have. It's just like if you're operating in your own personal space. You know what you have. You know what you need to do. And so we may want to purchase 100 computers this year. But the reality is we can't purchase 100. We maybe can purchase 50. Maybe we can only do 25. Maybe we can go to our alumni groups and we can say to them, we have this lab that needs to be refurbished. We have to put in some new stations. How can you work with us? And we get a lot of support in that way. So,
What you're saying to me emphasizes the point you were making earlier about the disparity in the various schools, because somewhere in Jamaica there's a school that is saying, I have 2 indoor toilets. I want to end the year with 2 more. It's giving me an insight, and I hope that our listeners are.
I think one of the things that we should really pay attention to as well and appreciate is that we're a developing country, and even as I'm calling for more funding, and as I'm calling for more creative ways of doing things, rethinking, reapportioning, shifting the emphasis, I still recognize that we will never have all of what we need. I recognize that. So we have our dream school improvement plan. And this is what we're going after. And what I will share with my staff at all times is we may not get to 100% of what we want, but we are going to go as close as we can to the 100%, not where we are this year. So that is the approach, I think, and that's the approach I think we take in all schools, recognizing that the truth is we're a developing country. And a lot of what we want, we're not going to be able to have. Let's be practical.
But we were talking about, and I'd love your thoughts on this. We're talking about some degree of equity, and I don't mean equality. I'm really saying equity. Some degree of equity across the board for schools in different communities, areas, different income levels, that would give us an output, meaning the children come out with a level of education and awareness that gives them a fighting chance. As president, and I'm looking now at your hat as president, past president, where you were on the ground floor with all schools of every stripe. Was there some sort of common level that we were seeking to bring everybody to this place, just so that even the poorest school from the poorest communities could deliver a certain output?
I was at pains to say that common level must be upwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes some of the conversation sounds like downward.
Yeah, because they would say this one have so much and that one have so little, and it looked like the other one should come down.
Right, and I like to talk to my colleagues. That's why I sharpen my opinions and my ideas, and you don't know it all. One of the conversations I remember having as secondary principals is that why can't we pay more attention? Take that baseline report that came out of the National Education Inspectorate, the NEI.
Yes.
Take that baseline report and use that as our data guide. We knew enough, but the data is there now.
Yes.
Why can't we focus on those schools Set targets for them, however you want to set it. I'm speaking off the top of my head now.
Yes.
Let's say you have a 3-year plan for them. A 5-year plan is really better, in my opinion.
Yes.
But let's say you have a 3-year plan for them. You go in and you work with them on their school improvement planning. You resource them differently.
Mm-hmm.
You take a school like an Arden. Okay, so we're going to maintain you where you are.
Right.
We still are doing our checks and balances on you because we can't just leave you out there like that. You are accountable.
Yes.
And pay more attention to those schools. Help those schools in terms of additional staff, resource materials, values and attitudes. One of the problems we have in Jamaica is that we destroy what we have. And I found it made a difference when I went on the intercom every morning as I welcome people to school at Arden.
Yes.
I would say, welcome to another great day at Arden High School, blah, blah, blah. And one of the things I always say to them, turn off the lights if you're not using it. Switch off the lights. Do not waste water. We're not here to subsidize JPS and NWC. Do not destroy furniture. If you see a chair on the outside, please take it inside. Do not leave it in the elements.
No.
And so we do not have to be purchasing, we do not have to be replacing so much. I would say to them, the money that we save is to buy more computers for you, which is to buy more software for you. That's the kind of approach that I think when I speak about values.
Yes.
It's kind of approach, a kind of a national consensus on we're going to protect our schools. So every year we're not talking about a furniture shortage. Every year we're talking about replacing things. Every year we're not talking about painting. One of the things that came out of that, and I noticed there at Arden, is the paint faded, but the walls were not as dirty as they used to be. So even though, we painted eventually because the place looked dull, not
drab.
because it was dirty.
Yes.
So we need to take some more of those things, go into those schools and make it a whole child, whole school, whole community effort.
Can you repeat that again? Nadine?
Yeah?
Hello? Can you repeat that statement?
Whole child, whole school, whole community.
Right.
Yes.
So that is
And that's not a budget issue.
That's not a budget issue. That's a philosophy of how you do it. That speaks the heart. Is that correct?
Exactly. Talk to reach people. I remember when I at birthday, I have to use this example. I use it all the time, and Miss Buck will forgive me for calling birthday's name. But when I looked and we weren't having students pass English, and I was listening to the children just speaking Creole all the time, and they could not sustain a conversation in standard English, a sentence or two, but not a conversation. It surprised me because I am from Portland and I didn't grow up with that happening around me. Clearly, I'd moved away and the dynamics had changed. And I remember going to a PTA meeting and saying to the parents, look, you know how to speak English because when you come and talk to me, you're speaking to me in English. I grew up with many of you, and I know you can speak English. Can you start speaking English to your children so that they begin practicing English so that it becomes something that it's more natural for them and we will end up having more of them doing better in terms of managing the language, whether to pass English language or for whatever else they need to do, because language is a living thing, all right? So I remember going to the PTA meeting and saying that to the parents. And a little later on, a teacher came and said to me, Miss Malloy, the children are laughing at their parents because their parents are speaking English to them. Now, guess what? I don't know how much impact it had, but the bottom line is the parents were working.
The parents were trying. Yes.
And the children saw the difference.
That is the best story you could share with us.
It may not make the change, the immediate change.
Immediately, but it's a drop in the bucket and it's a move in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So most of these initiatives that you were discussing with principals are the things that principals can do on their own authority without having to go back to ministry and so on. That's how it sounds to me. So,
yes,
but
when you're on the ground in your situation, and
yes.
Mr. Paul is a very active member of our PTA, so he knows when you come together and you agree on things, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to agree on every last minute detail enough. When you agree on things and you agree in a general...
On the fundamentals.
Yes, and you're going in a general direction. You may think that you should have a laptop, and I, for my good reason, want a Chromebook. But the bottom line is, both of us are...
Both of you want a device.
we understand that technology is a part of the education.
The necessity of it. So I'm tempted. I am tempted to ask you before the break, and Percy might have another question before the break too, so I'll be quick with mine. I'm tempted to ask you what level of traction your suggestion about bringing those schools up, because I think all of Jamaica want to see a rising of the baseline. How is that addressed at the ministry level in terms of the planning and the budgeting? And are you getting or seeing the kind of response that's desirable?
There is a response. It would be very unfair of me if I were to say there is no response. Our chief education officer has worked across schools as well. She's a guidance counselor, so she understands the emotive issues. Our now acting permanent secretary is the chief inspector of schools. Our minister is a business person with a business nose, and she likes data and she likes to see results. So it would be very unfair of me if I were to say that there is nothing being done.
Yes.
But I still don't believe it's enough.
Yeah.
That push, that I remember we were on a program on another radio station. I was on it. Grace Baston from Campton College was on it. Bentley Brown from Spanish Town High was on it. I just remember those two.
Yes.
Getting to this, I don't have to remember everlasting. But,
well, we can't challenge you about who.
But we were all saying the same thing.
Yes.
Take that baseline data. Take the report. Go. You don't know that. You don't even really need that either. But you're using it.
But you can use it to be able to measure something.
Yes, go into those schools, because schools take the inspection reports seriously. I can tell you that. I'm an inspector myself.
Yes.
When they were coming to inspect Arden, as much as I'm an inspector, I was thinking. And I was nervous, and I was like, I hope them don't go say no. And I hope that.
Yes.
And I'm praying, Lord, please let it all go well. Don't let two students decide that this is the day when they're going to have
Yes. The children need to be well behaved.
Yes.
Yeah. Because you take pride in what you do, and I think
we have all the records. Teachers, make sure you can find your lesson plan, because I know you have it.
yeah, like a mother hen, making sure all is in place.
We take it seriously. I think that is a place to start. And I'm going to go back. I'm a bleeding out when it comes to this thing. The will.
Yes,
create those relationships. And because not everybody going to like you. Not everybody going to be on board. Not everybody is going to think that what you're doing is the right thing.
In fact,
it's not an easy thing.
In fact, most likely the person who gets after that.
No.
Well,
that's the nature of things, because you
Miss Malloy, can you hold? We're gonna take a station break and come back to you. Is that all right with you?
Only about 5 minutes more. I have work to do.
Oh yes.
Tell me that. We know that, Nadine.
Thank you. welcome back. We are in the final moments of our discussion with Miss Nadine Malloy, and believe me, it's always the case that some intriguing issue arises just when you should be saying goodbye. But we already said she's given us a good portion of her time this morning, and we're grateful for that. So
What we should probably invite her to become
Yes.
fellow in residence of the morning connection. So at time,
I will leave that to you, Percival, if you can persuade her.
After you've had our JTA president on, then I will come.
Yeah, because
excellent.
she's indicated that she will be on next week, because she said she couldn't have come today simply because first day in office, all of what that means.
Yeah.
But anyway,
She really has a wealth of knowledge because, you know, she's originally a teacher of history.
okay.
You get a lot from her, yes.
So her perspective is interesting, deep. But Percy has a leadership question for you.
I've heard what you have said, and having been involved as PTA president in different schools, at the primary school.
I'm sorry, you cannot got a little low there.
I'm saying, having been involved as a PTA president at the primary school, at the high school level, the question that comes to mind is the involvement of parents is crucial. Do you think there have been failings in terms of leadership across the board, in terms of the parents, the teachers, so on, in terms of the educational system?
You're not going to have excellent leadership in all instances. Even those persons who are considered strong leaders, if you do an analysis of their tenure, their styles and everything, it's never even across the board. There are always deficits. And one of the things I learned early on is to sell my strengths and buy my weaknesses.
I didn't get
tried
that. You went.
Sell her strengths.
And buy my weaknesses.
So you okay? All right.
So where I find that I have a deficit, I have absolutely no problem stepping back and allowing someone to take the lead for those issues, for those moments, for those activities. It's all about that design team that you gather around you as a leader. And I believe at Arden we've had a history of getting people who are right fit to guide the process along. We've always had a very strong Parent-Teachers Association here. I remember when the National Parent-Teachers Association was formed, Buff Bay High School and Arden High School were two of the founding members of that body. And it was a time when I saw the value. As a classroom teacher, I didn't appreciate it as much as I've appreciated it as a principal. The value of having a strong group of parents who can support you, and support doesn't always mean agree with you, because you can't always see all perspectives. So we have got to the stage here at Arden where there's actually a secretariat here. Our PTA administers our students' insurance program. Our PTA is responsible for our breakfast program. Our PTA is responsible for a staff incentive, which makes Arden a little bit more attractive to some persons to work. Our PTA is responsible for supporting some of our professional development activities as a staff. They are here with us all the time.
To your knowledge, is Arden alone in employing those techniques?
No.
So there are several other schools.
There are other schools, but perhaps not enough.
Yes.
We have a grade representative system, a class representative system, where our parents are selected and elected to represent each class and each grade level. And there are frequent meetings, feedback sessions. We have our PTA putting on parenting seminars. There was a time when we had Saturday seminars and we collaborated with other PTAs for parents to come in and to learn strategies that could help them with their children.
So are these strategies condoned or encouraged or have to be approved by Ministry of Education, or principals are free to introduce what they think best at that level?
As long as it is in keeping with the ethics and the ethos of the school and the mission and vision.
I see. So it's good to know that schools have that latitude to embrace and utilize those kinds of techniques. But I want, on the leadership issue, I want to ask you this before we have to part. Do you have any knowledge of the JTA or the JTA particularly? Have you been able to influence a change of personnel at the ministry level where it's clear that there either lack of competence or lack of just ability to interrelate? There's been a pushback.
I'm not aware of that. What I do know in the education system, we have a robust appraisal system. It works. It's not supposed to be punitive. It's supposed to be one that allows us to coach those persons who are not doing well in particular areas. Help to deploy persons according to their strengths.
Yes.
So I am not aware of us doing anything like that, but I am sure feedback would be included in that. So, for example, if my presentation to the PTA was not at its best in my last outing, I would be getting that feedback quickly, very quickly.
Yes.
The chairman would be getting that feedback. And we would have to have conversations about how we work on that.
So
I can't speak to the ministry itself, but I can speak to what takes place here. So, for example, last year, at the last PTA meeting we had, a parent spoke of an issue with a workbook, and immediately we were onto it. And we were able to deal with it, and it is something that factored into that particular appraisal process. So I know that it works, how it works in detail at the ministry.
Yes.
I cannot speak to it, but I do not know of us at the JTA
having an impact on personnel choices. Because right now
we are not into witch hunting.
Yes. Yes. It sparks curiosity because there are all kinds of comments being made on the minister's performance or how certain things are being handled at the ministry level, and you can see the tension. I was just curious as to...
You know something?
Yes.
People will always be calling for people's head. And sometimes, I saw somebody with a post on their status about the JTA.
Yes.
And that's the only organization that I've really committed my life's work to. So I actually reached out to the person because it's somebody that I know, I'm acquainted with.
You have relationship.
I reached out to the person to find out, what has happened why you have this impression of the JTA. Is there something that I could do either with, on either side, whether you are the JTA? And when we were finished with the conversation, the person had not a god reason to be saying that.
And the post came down?
The post didn't come down, but I'm not going to ask anybody to take down a post like that. But what was very clear to me when I was finished with the conversation, you don't understand the JTA.
Right.
And you're not taking steps to understand the JTA. It also begs the other question. Are we at the JTA doing enough
to communicate,
to put information out there so people can understand exactly what the JTA is all about and the kind of leadership that the JTA has offered in the education sector? There is not one single, as you speak about leadership, yes, leadership, there is not one single benefit that a teacher enjoys, no, and may be in danger of losing down the road that was not negotiated for by the JTA. Yes. As a matter of fact, when I say to people that I understand from good sources, that the Caribbean Examinations Council was first asked for, not necessarily the name, but a regional examination body was asked for first by the JTA.
When you come back to us, we're going to talk about the role of the JTA and what we can do from out here to promote and to support.
You should have the president on. She's doing a
yes.
Oh, she
will do that too.
She's slated to be on with us next week. We just have to confirm up the timing for next week Thursday. But I spoke to her, very nice lady, very very kind lady.
She's not just a nice lady person, but she's a brilliant person.
Well, I guess Percy wants to reserve that for you. But when she comes, I will see if you're in threat of losing. I will let you know. I will let you know if you're being deposed.
Well, we all are running our own races. That's fine.
And you did endorse her, so you know that
Absolutely,
she has the
absolutely.
capacity
Continue to endorse
to
her.
depose you. Thank you so much, Miss Nadine. One of the reasons why I said when we speak again, I'm going to raise this issue with you, and you in particular, is because we've had some discussions on air about the role of quotidian civil society organizations in effecting change that can preserve democracy.
And the great thing is doing that.
You see why I say you? Because I would not want to ask the current president and somebody think that she is trying to change the minister or the prime minister or take over.
So
She represents a significant block of persons in this country.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes,
But we
yes.
do have to step up our game in terms of our advocacy for the principles that will make sense for the future of this country without, catering to political sensitivities.
bloodshed or anything.
But so
And misinformation too. And misinformation.
and absolutely. So I really, when we do interviews or when we have conversations here, we try not to create any rough spots for our guests. So the sitting president will have a far more easy time.
All right, all right.
Yes, we'll be very gentle with her because we don't want her to say a single thing that might cause a ripple anywhere. And we do have a wide audience for this program.
You will treat her well.
We will treat
As we
her
always treat our guests well.
absolutely. So thank you so much. What is it? Have an ardent day.
A started day.
Thank you so much. And just a shout out to all my educators right across Jamaica, all the people working in schools, and support workers too. We're going through a very difficult time. It is very stressful. The dynamic, we're pivoting on a daily basis. Just love yourselves. Do whatever it is that you can do in your downtime to retool and refuel as we come back into the space called school, because we have quite a bit of a task on our
Ahead
hands
of us.
from
Well,
this year. Yes.
thank you. I'm going to use that blessing for myself.
Bless you.
Yes.
Thank you very much for
All right,
joining
thank
us
you.
again. Bye-bye.
So it's always a delight to speak to her. Really, really is. She has a sensitivity and just a history and roster of experience and stories that
She came
that
out
makes
of
it
the
real.
bowels of us as Jamaican and has risen to the top, as somebody would say.
I mean, I like that one.
You know the balls? No,
That she
man.
came out of our bowels.
No, the balls of
She
us
came out of our heart.
of Jamaicans. No, man.
I'm moving it up to a higher organ.
Hello.
All this bowel talk.
But
Yeah.
as we talk about bowels,
Not me, you.
when we talk about buzz, meaning that some of the times when real change happens and you say the daughters of
Rispa.
yeah, in terms of what she has to come.
So now you're talking about women and
Women, yeah.
She made such an interesting point. I have to share it and you tell me how you feel about it. She spoke about the new society that emerges after a pandemic. We understand
After any pandemic,
Yeah.
anything like that.
right. We understand the reset and we know that it's a resetting of things both environmentally and socially. But she spoke about women
Yeah, and the impact of women.
and the
in terms
impact
of-
on
and
the impact on
resignation.
and off.
And she spoke about the great resignation because what was fascinating, she says, two profession, nurses and
teachers
which
that are
become very feminine.
feminized.
Feminized around the world. The impact of the woman, and we've spoken about that in terms of bringing about the real change that needs to happen. I think you have.
When I release the lionesses.
Yes, the lioness have to rise,
Yeah.
because in terms of change and what needs to happen, yes, women are at the forefront. Women are going to help us to pivot again as we move forward, and you have said it too. In Deuteronomy, you spoke to the fact that when women are not treated well, there's a curse that comes on
The
society
nation.
as
Yeah,
a result.
man.
And Reverend Owens, when he spoke last week,
yes.
he alluded to the fact that women again and they are at you would say they're in the line of vision of the enemy wants to take them out, and yet they are very powerful in terms of the change that they can bring in a society.
That is why the enemy have us as target number one.
Yeah.
either to use us or to destroy us. Those he can't use, he seeks to destroy. And women have to be especially on the alert for that, to be aware that we are the key to so many things. We're not the door, we're the key. The door remain locked unless you activate and use your key.
Access and use the key and open it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The hands that rule rocks the cradle, rules the world.
Rules the world. And we can go on and on. There's many of those. So, Percy, I know that you made a very special effort to get that, to organize that conversation. And I thank you for it. A couple of things that she spoke about, which we need to follow up on, even as we talk about how are we going to alleviate the pain of what's happening with this drift from the classroom. The role of parents and communities.
Yeah, that's significant, And my experience has been, because I've been a president of a PT at a primary school level and at the high school level. And I've said, if I could get in any school 20% of my parents involved in the process, the changes that we would bring about would be significant. And I remember, as she spoke about what is allocated to the schools. I remember when I became PTA president at a school, I sat with the principal and I said, Miss, what can I do to help you? And she says, well, we are severely under-resourced. At that point in time, my previous successors had implemented what was called a PTA contribution, and those persons in their wisdom had said, because we know the school not getting enough, we give it to the school to administer those funds. We know it comes and we ensure it. And she says, well, if we could move that up significantly in terms of compliance, we'd have more resources in order to run the school, because what they were getting from it.
So your predecessors had agreed a stipend of some kind,
Yes,
contribution from parents,
right.
And she was saying if more people paid it, not increase the amount of it,
More people,
just get more parents paying it.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
More people paying it. And then I says, okay, I believe very much in transparency in terms of what you did. And then I sat and I says, do you have a mission and a vision for the school? Because vision and mission is what drives what you do. So we came together with the PTA executive and some senior teachers, and we came up with a vision and mission and what the values would be for our school. And we did that. And then I remember that PTA meeting when we did a lot of work in terms of inviting parents to come. We'd go, they drop off a train, come to PTA. So I got my team members to work with me. And then we put it out, and it was in bulletins and things.
Which school was that?
I care not to call the name of the school. Yeah.
Was it a poor school down in the country,
No,
far away?
No, man, it's in Kingston.
No, the minute you talk about the minute you talk about as the parents drop off the children, right away I know that your rate of success and effectiveness with that program is very dependent on where the school is and what kind of school. Person, may I tell you?
No, but I'm telling you what my experience was.
So you've been in a school in a poor community doing the same thing?
No, minute.
That was the point I'm making.
No, but I'm saying the school population was a mixed one. And why I'm saying it was a mixed one, in that I had parents who said to me, I don't have anything to give, but I can give my sweat labor in terms of activities. So we'd be doing a fundraiser. They couldn't give anything, but they says I'll come and help to cut up chicken and that. I said, that's all right. That's all right. So we had a mixed bag. It was
some schools only have one demographic.
No, but that school has a mixed demographic.
But I'm talking about the school that have one demographic. But, carry on with your story.
But even then with that, so we did that, and we spoke and we told them what it was, and they said, really? That's what it is? The break comes.
And they did better.
And the break comes. I'll finish that story.
Oh, it's break time?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, saved by the bell.
Yeah.
must love.
Good morning, welcome back. As I was saying in regards to what I was sharing in terms of the experience, it was a mixed school, um, mixed population in terms of the socio demographics of the school. But what I wanted to point out is the partnership in the school that happened between the parents and the teachers. We recognized that it was our school, and so therefore we had our PTA. We shared out what the vision mission was and the compliance rate in terms of we call it the PTA contribution, went up significantly, and it really allowed the principal some comfort in terms of dealing with some of the issues, so basic issues in terms of sanitation and what was needed for the school in terms of security. And then we moved on to other stuff. There needed to be some change in the infrastructure, and through our fundraising and everybody supported it. It was good to see the partnership in terms of the parents and the teachers, and more parents were more involved in the school in terms of what we did. So I really think that across Jamaica, if more parents took a greater interest in what was happening at school, the children would see that, boy, mommy don't just send me to school as a daycare facility, but they're involved in terms of my homework, coming to school, checking up on me, what was happening, and it really helped. So there was a family atmosphere at the school, reinforcement from school, reinforcement from home. We had some occasional instances where things really went off, but that is the way to go forward in terms of you're going to bring about real change.
You know, I was pressing you somewhat for a little more detail and color to your story, and as I roll through the papers, I see something that is real life detail and color that I was trying to bring into the conversation. To the point that Miss Malloy was making, that there is a need to bring up the level, the baseline needs to move upward, so that schools that are not doing so well can be improved, and it requires special attention and so on. And we talk about partnering with the parents and the community and so on. It's the same thing. Some communities, some parents, some households just don't have the current capacity to be the kind of partner that a school might really need. But the children still need to be educated to the same level as those in communities where the capacity is different. There's a story in today's paper. Couple ponders fate of children as school reopening nears. Elaine Collins and Ira Mackenzie are praying that their children will be among those in school on September 5. They are desperate for a miracle to enable the children to attend school, and then there's some detail about what's happening with this family. The children attend school in Clarendon. Mm-hmm. They will have to make do with the uniforms they had from last year, although one is short and the other a bit tight, because you know children grow like weed during the summer. Regarding the textbooks and school fees, they can't even think about that now, because the greatest need is to have food on the table. The mother suffers from hypertension and low blood count. That probably is low iron. And says she would love to work, but she's often too weak to complete any task. As for the children's father, he has a prostate condition and up to recently was passing his urine through a catheter. Any exertion, he starts to bleed and has to be admitted to hospital. She says, I have nothing for them to go to school. I don't know what they're going to do September morning. It costs me $1,500 a day for the big one, and the small one is $1,000 a day. So that's $2,500 to put to, just to keep them in school. This is transportation and lunch. Putting meals on the table is just as challenging. She's being assisted by Good Samaritans in the community. And she does some farming, so she plants cassava. So they're eating a lot of cassava. Adding to the challenges, the housing situation is unstable. The zinc on the roof is rotten, which force all of them to cram into one room whenever it rains. I'm just, outlining a situation. There are some communities where that's the order of the day, and the parents' capacity to be a partner severely limited or non-existent. They're looking to school for lunch, for textbooks, and for support. So that's a part of the inequity that we have to face. And when we talk about schools not doing well and children not coming out with the prospects for a reasonable future, these are the underlying conditions. Now, those don't have anything to do with the education system for the main part, because housing, healthcare, access to healthcare, and social welfare initiatives don't fall under the portfolio of the Ministry of Education, though it touches and concern it, obviously. And this is just, one story that made it to the top of the heap. And she may get help, but behind her are many others. And the cause for those inequities are many and some well known, and the call for social justice, for change, and for people to get involved, whether you have a child in school or not, it is just undeniable.
So the call that you are making, because within the sphere, and I speak about it all the time, it is for us to become our brothers keepers. We see that, and we reach out to help. And if we could get some more information in terms of
that particular family,
it is what
yes,
done, where it is at, and I know in a lot of schools, the guidance counselor's office administer welfare outside of the park, because I lift my hat a lot of times to the guidance counselor, how they're able to reach out and they see the child, and the child is helping. You don't even know that the child is being helped because they do it in such a discreet manner. So really, it is time for our hearts, not our bowls of compassion to be
opened. Yeah.
In terms of reaching out to help people. And you're in communities, and some of the time you're little, you think it's small, you can reach out and help somebody and help to lift them up. But I really like the point that Miss Nadine Malloy made in terms of the fact, in terms of the disparity between the well-resourced schools and the schools that are not well-resourced. And as she says, use the data that we have to put real resources to the not well-resourced school in order to move them up to a base level, which will make it so much better in terms of the process for everyone.
All right. Well said, sir. There are 2 points that I would love to share as we're saying our goodbyes. Taki has made 2 points that worth repeating here. He says, undermining the importance of the women's role is the significant reason the politics of the Taliban remain an obstacle for them advancing even further.
That's true. So the government is operating like
scriptural. It is true. Yeah. Yes, but
in some, when the term Taliban became very popular.
Opening Gmail.
If somebody responded to you and say you're a Taliban, and it was not a compliment. Not a good compliment. Yeah, operate like real Taliban. It's not a good compliment. When people tell you say operate like Taliban.
It's not a compliment.
Not a compliment.
And then the second point he says we should use history effectively in our quest for change because we do not want to repeat the results of past experiences.
Yeah,
so our future shouldn't be saddled by the things which already afflicted us, and it requires a knowledge of history and the timely application of it. Nadine made the point that the current JTA president was a history teacher.
Brilliant.
And so she comes into her discussion with the knowledge that history ought not to repeat itself, and we must use acquired knowledge to chart a better future.
And even as one other thing she highlighted was the will. She kept saying the will, the will. I don't know if it's the political will, I don't know if it is the corporate will, I don't know if it's the community will, just the will to collaborate to make it better.
I think all of those, and it's good that she didn't categorize, the will. She left it at that because even at the parental level, you see a need for greater resolve.
Yes.
Amongst the principals, where she said to the principals, could we all do this? And they can do it without approval, endorsement, whatever, as long as she says it's within the ethos, the ethics, the framework of what you're doing in your school. There is some latitude you have. So if you have the will to bring that change about, you can do it. And that's good to know, because a lot of times we are blaming government and policymakers for things which we have the authority to do. We're just not exercising the authority. So there's that aspect of it too. And then on the policy side and government side, well, we see what that is.
Yes.
I don't expect that this ministry would be performing any better than the other ministries, because the leadership, you talked about leadership, the leadership of the country has a certain character and a certain modus operandi. So we're seeing it, and we're just trying to
and as we
work our way around it. I see you're holding my hand.
Yes. I want to hold your hand, but that's a different song. But I'm just thinking, as we talk about education, that the former Prime Minister, Bruce Golding, has said that one of the great failings since independence is what we have done with education. And he must know, because I believe his father was an educator. Tertius Golding was his father.
Oh, that's a school named after him. Yeah. All right. Let's say our thank yous to those online and those on air. Thank you so much for sharing the space with us, and to Miss Malloy for her insightful contribution. Thank you so much, Pastor Percival. I thank you. Back in the studio, we thank you. Right here on set, engineer Miss Eden, thank you all very much. This is the start of our weekend, we like to say. It's not that we relax from this point. It is the only full working day I get tomorrow. So I end up working harder than ever. But it's so long from us until Monday, God's willing.
And as I often say, walk good and don't buck it too.
All right.
Have a good weekend.